I'm at Garden and Gutter, available now. Get your copy, tap in. I didn't get to do my live this morning, so I'm following up. Now that I have an opportunity to. May 6th. Then the man and his wife heard the sound of the Lord God as he was walking in the garden in the cool of the day, and they hid from the Lord God among the trees of the garden. But the Lord God called to the man, where are you? Where are you? Genesis chapter 3, verse 8 and 9 through 9. NIV. Where are you? Before Adam and Eve ate the forbidden fruit in the Garden of Eden, they were happy, confident, and secure. They knew God loved them. They walked with God, talked with God, and enjoyed being in his presence. When they disobeyed, the condemnation came, the accusing voice that brought fear and intimidation. The first thing they did was run and hide. They had to get out of God's presence. They believed the lie that they wouldn't be gladly welcomed anymore. God came and said, Adam, where are you? It wasn't so much about his location, it was about his frame of mind, about the shame and guilt. Perhaps you have disobeyed what you know God says. You're not where you want to be, and you don't feel worthy or deserving of God's goodness. Now, as with Adam, you're hiding. God is saying, where are you? I long to be with you. I have forgiveness for your wrongs. I have washed away your sins. Come out of hiding. Come out of unworthiness. Come out of condemnation and receive my glad welcome. I speak on it a lot, but nobody in this plane has anything to do with your salvation or your spiritual wellness. Your spiritual wellness is something that's in your hands. If you don't find spiritual wellness through a Christian practice, I'm not the one to push you into that. If you don't find spiritual wellness through a yoga practice, I'm not going to push you into that. If you don't find spiritual wellness saying affirmations, I'm not going to push you into that. But what I will always affirm and say is, this is a spiritual experience first. We are human beings having a spiritual experience, a spiritual being having a human experience. So if nobody's reminding you of that, I will gladly do so. Today I'm reading chapter 10. Bear with me. I got the sniffles. I got outside noise. Chapter 10 are all about love. It's romance. Sweet love. Sweet love say, where, how, and when. What do you want of me? Yours I am, for you I was born. What do you want of me? Saint Teresa of Avila. Interesting day. To return to love, to get the love we always wanted but never had, to have the love we want but are not prepared to give. We seek romantic relationships. We believe these relationships more than any other will rescue and redeem us. True love does have the power to redeem, but only if we are ready for redemption. Love saves us only if we want to be saved. That's a heavy line already. Love saves us only if we want to be saved. So many seekers after love are taught in childhood to feel unworthy, that nobody could love them as they really are, and they construct a false self. In adult life, they meet people who fall in love with their false self. But this love does not last. At some point, glimpses of the real self emerge and disappointment comes. Rejected by their chosen love, the message received in childhood is confirmed. Nobody could love them as they really are. As heavy. Already starting off with some bangers. So I've been talking to a lot of people about the false self, or what is it? You met the representative. We meet the representative of people, and sometimes we fall in love with the representative, and then one day they don't have the capacity They don't have the capacity to represent what they've been representing. And life gets a little tricky. Few of us enter romantic relationships able to receive love. We fall into romantic attachments, doomed to replay familiar family dramas. Usually we do not know this will happen precisely because we have grown up in a culture that has told us that no matter what we experienced in our childhoods, no matter the pain, sorrow, alienation, emptiness, no matter the extent of our dehumanization, romantic love will be ours. We believe we will meet the girl of our dreams. We believe someday our prince will come. They show up just as we imagined they would. We wanted the lover to appear, but most of us were not really clear about what we wanted to do with them, what the love was that we wanted to make, and how we would make it. We were not ready to open our hearts fully. In her first book, The Bluest Eye, novelist Toni Morrison identifies the idea of romantic love as one of the most destructive ideas in the history of human thought. Its destructiveness resides in the notion that we come to love with no will and no capacity to choose. This illusion, perpetuated by so much romantic lore, stands in the way of our learning how to love. To sustain our fantasy, we substitute romance for love. When romance is depicted as a project, or so the mass media, especially movies, would have us believe, women are the architects and the planners. Everyone likes to imagine that women are romantic, sentimental about love, that men follow where women lead, even in non-heterosexual relationships. The paradigms of leader and follower often prevail, with one person assuming the role deemed feminine and another the designated masculine role. No doubt it was someone playing the role of leader who conjured up the notion that we fall in love, that we lack choice and decision when choosing a partner, because when the chemistry is present, when the click is clear, it just happens. It overwhelms, it takes control. This way of thinking about love seems to be especially useful for men who are socialized via patriarchal notions of masculinity to be out of touch with what they feel. In the essay Love and Need, Thomas Merton contends the expression to fall in love reflects a peculiar attitude toward love and life itself, a mixture of fear, awe, fascination, and confusion. It implies suspicion, doubt, hesitation in the presence of something unavoidable, yet not fully reliable. If you do not know what you feel, then it is difficult to choose love. It is better to fall. Then you do not have to be responsible for your actions. Even though psychoanalysts from Fromm, writing in the 50s, to Peck in the present day, critique the idea that we fall in love, we continue to invest in the fantasy of effortless union. We continue to believe we are swept away, caught up in the rapture, that we lack choice and will. And The Art of Loving, Fromm repeatedly talks about love as action, essentially an act of will. He writes, to love somebody is not just a strong feeling, it is a decision, it is a judgment, it is a promise. If love were only a feeling, there would be no basis for the promise to love each other forever. A feeling comes and it may go. Peck builds upon Fromm's definition when he describes love as the will to nurture one's own or another's spiritual growth, adding the desire to love is not itself love. Love is as love does. Love is an act of will, namely both an intention and action. Will also implies choice. We do not have to love. We choose to love. Despite these brilliant insights and the wise counsel they offer, most people remain reluctant to embrace the idea that it is more genuine, more real to think of choosing to love rather than falling in love. Describing our romantic longings and life preservers, therapist Harriet Lerner shares that most people want a partner who is mature and intelligent, loyal and trustworthy, loving and attentive, sensitive and open, kind and nurturing, competent and responsible. No matter the intensity of this desire, she concludes, few of us evaluate a prospective partner with the same objectivity and clarity that we might use to select a household appliance or a car. To be capable of critically evaluating a partner, we would need to be able to stand back and look critically at ourselves, at our needs, desires, and longings. It was difficult for me to really take out a piece of paper and evaluate myself to see if I was able to give the love I wanted to receive. And even more difficult to make a list of the qualities I wanted to find in a mate. I listed 10 items. And then when I applied the list to men I had chosen as potential partners, it was painful to face the discrepancy between what I wanted and what I had chosen to accept. We fear that evaluating our needs and then carefully choosing partners will reveal that there is no one for us to love. Most of us prefer to have a partner who is lacking than no partner at all. What becomes apparent is that we may be more interested in finding a partner than in knowing love. Time and time again, when I talk to individuals about approaching love with will and intentionality, I hear the fear expressed that this will bring an end to romance. This is simply not so. Approaching romantic love from a foundation of care, knowledge, and respect actually intensifies romance. By taking the time to communicate with a potential mate, we are no longer trapped by the fear and anxiety underlying romantic interactions that take place without discussion or the sharing of intent and desire. I talked with a woman friend who stated that she had always been extremely fearful of sexual encounters, even when she knew someone well and desired them. Her fear was rooted in the shame she felt about the body, sentiments she had learned in childhood. Previously, her encounters with men had only intensified the shame. Usually, men made light of her anxiety. I suggested she might try meeting with the new man in her life over lunch with the set agenda of talking to him about sexual pleasure, their likes and dislikes, their hopes and fears. She reported back that the lunch was incredibly erotic. It laid the groundwork for them to be at ease with each other sexually when they finally reached that stage in their relationship. Erotic attraction often serves as the catalyst for an intimate connection between two people, but it is not a sign of love. Exciting, pleasurable sex can take place between two people who do not even know each other. Yet the vast majority of males in our society are convinced that their erotic longing indicates who they should and can love. Led by their penis, seduced by erotic desire, they often end up in relationships with partners with whom they share no common interests or values. The pressure on men in a patriarchal society to perform sexually is so great that men are often so gratified to be with someone with whom they find sexual pleasure that they ignore everything else. They cover up these mistakes by working too much or finding playmates they like outside of their committed marriage or partnership. It usually takes them a long time to name the lovelessness they may feel. And this recognition usually has to be covered up to protect the sexist insistence that men never admit failure. Women rarely choose men solely on the basis of erotic connection. While most females acknowledge the importance of sexual pleasure, they recognize that it is not the only ingredient needed to build strong relationships. And let's face it, the sexism of stereotyping women as caregivers makes it acceptable for women to articulate emotional needs. So females are socialized to be more concerned about emotional connection. Women who have only named their erotic hunger in the wake of the permission given by the feminist movement and sexual liberation have always been able to speak their hunger for love. This does not mean that we find the love we long for. Like males, we often settle for lovelessness because we are attracted to other aspects of a partner's makeup. Shared sexual passion can be a sustaining and binding force in a troubled relationship, but it is not the proving ground for love. That was interesting. How far am I in? That was interesting given like current circumstances where it could be said that women are choosing because of superficial things. They're thinking with their lower mind. They're thinking with their lowest self as they choose relationships. It could for sure be deeper meaning to the way women choose their mates, but right now it's like, can you provide and can you work me out? But this is interesting. This is one of the great sadnesses of life. Too often women and some men have their most intense erotic pleasure with partners who wound them in other ways. I was thinking wound up, thinking sexual. Partners who wound them in other ways. The intensity of sexual intimacy does not serve as a catalyst for respect, care, trust, understanding, and commitment. Couples who rarely or never have sex can know lifelong love. Sexual pleasure enhances the bonds of love, but they can exist and satisfy when sexual desire is absent. Okay. Typo. But they can't exist and satisfy when sexual desire is absent. Oh, they can. Sexual pleasure. Okay. Ultimately, most of us would choose great love over sustained sexual passion if we had to. Luckily, we do not have to make this choice because we usually have satisfying erotic pleasure with our loved one. The best sex and the most satisfying sex are not the same. I've had great sex with men who were intimate terrorists and who will seduce and attract by giving you just what you feel your heart needs, then gradually and abruptly withholding it once they have gained your trust. And I've been deeply sexually fulfilled in bonds with loving partners who have had less skill and know-how. Because of sexist socialization, women tend to put sexual satisfaction in its appropriate perspective. We acknowledge its value without allowing it to become the absolute measure of intimate connection. Enlightened women want fulfilling erotic encounters as much as men, but we ultimately prefer erotic satisfaction within a context where there is loving, intimate connection. If men were socialized to desire love as much as they are taught to desire sex, we would see a cultural revolution. As it stands, most men tend to be more concerned about sexual performance and sexual satisfaction than whether they are capable of giving and receiving love. Very interesting. Very interesting. I'm just reading a book, man. It's not misinformation if it's somebody's thoughts. I'm just curious about somebody's thoughts. This is Bell Hooks' book from 2000, All About Love. And I'm reading it mostly so that there can be conversations about why you consider this misinformation. I like dialogue. I'm not going to tell you that your opinions about what I'm reading are wrong or right. I'm just curious about what others may feel as I observe this book. I know a lot of people who swear by it, so I wanted to read it. I don't agree with everything. I definitely hear some things that are valid, and the points that I may not agree with, I would like further clarity around, right? So that's what this is. But yes, I think that last sentence I just read. If men were socialized to desire love as much as they are taught to desire sex, we would see a cultural revolution. As it stands, most men tend to be more concerned about sexual performance and sexual satisfaction than whether they are capable of giving and receiving love. I don't know. I really do think about love a lot. I guess I'm different in that way, but I think about love a lot more. I still want to have sex, so that's pretty obvious, but I've yet to meet a partner who didn't want to have a young lady. I've yet to meet a lady who didn't like sex. So that's why this is interesting. Like I think this goes both ways. I think women that I've come across can take the little bit of lovelessness for the sex. But it's everybody's own experience, right? Even though sex matters, most of us are no more able to articulate sexual needs and longings than we are able to speak our desire for love. Ironically, the presence of life-threatening sexually transmitted diseases has become the reason more couples communicate with each other about erotic behavior. The very people, many of them men, who had heretofore claimed that too much talk made things less romantic, find that talk does not threaten pleasure at all. It merely changes its nature. Where once knowing nothing was the basis for excitement and erotic intensity, knowing more is now the basis. I think that's interesting as well. I actually, I communicate, right? I grew up in a space where we talked about that. And I had a great health class where we talked about sex and just spoke about how men can carry diseases without it being shown, without there being symptoms. We are asymptomatic. Women will have signs of the disease quicker. Women will also transmit the disease. They'll be able to get the disease. I mean, men can transmit it, but it won't show, and we can give the disease without knowing, and women can have like diseases that stop them from having kids later on in life. So when those things came across my space, I just started to be more conscious of that as I was moving through space. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it merely changes the nature. Where once knowing nothing was the basis for excitement and erotic intensity, knowing more is now the basis. Lots of people who fear the loss of romantic and or erotic intensity made this radical change in their thinking and were surprised to find that their previous assumptions that talk killed romance were wrong. Cultural acceptance of this change shows that we are all capable of shifting our paradigms, the foundational ways of thinking and doing things that become habitual. We are all capable of changing our minds, attitudes about falling in love. We can acknowledge the click we feel when we meet someone new as just that, a mysterious sense of connection that may or may not have anything to do with love. However, it could or could not be the primal connection while simultaneously acknowledging that it will lead us to love. How different things might be if rather than saying, I think I'm in love, we were saying, I've connected with someone in a way that makes me think I'm on the way to knowing love. Or if instead of saying, I am in love, we said, I am loving or I will love. Our patterns around romantic love are unlikely to change if we do not change our language. That was kind of heavy too. You know what I'm saying? The way we speak about it. I am loving. Now, I've had moments where I'll say that and you're playing games. It's like, I don't even know you. How can I love you? It's really what I get to sometimes. And love, as I've known it, has always been an action. Like my father used to tell me that growing up, don't just say you love me, show me. All right, don't just say, oh, I love you, I care about you. And then when it's time to do said love, perform said love, oh, I can't show up for you. Oh, I don't got time for that. Oh, I don't really know what you like. Oh, I don't make, like I said, make time and just perform actions that we feel are loving. It's a mutual agreement. We are all uncomfortable with the conventional expressions we use to talk about romantic love. All of us feel that these expressions and the thinking behind them are one of the reasons we entered relationships that did not work. In retrospect, we see that to a grave extent, the way we talked about these bonds foreshadowed what happened in the relationship. I certainly changed the way I talk and think about love in response to the emotional lack I felt within myself and in my relationships. Starting with clear definitions of love, of feeling, intention, and will, I no longer enter relationships with the lack of awareness that leads me to make all bonds a site for repeating old patterns. Although I have experienced many disappointments in my quest to love and be loved, I still believe in the transformative power of love. Disappointment has not led me to close my heart. However, the more I talk with people around me, I find disappointment to be widespread, and it does lead many folks to feel profoundly cynical about love. A lot of people simply think we make too much of love. Our culture may make much of love as compelling fantasy or myth, but it does not make much of the art of loving. Our disappointment about love is directed at romantic love. We fail at romantic love when we have not learned the art of loving. It's as simple as that. Often we confuse perfect passion with perfect love. A perfect passion happens when we meet someone who appears to have everything we have wanted to find in a partner. I say appears because the intensity of our connection usually blinds us. We see what we want to see. In Soulmates, Thomas More contends that the enchantment of romantic illusion has its place and that the soul thrives on ephemeral the soul thrives on ephemeral fantasies. While perfect passion provides us with its own particular pleasure and danger, for those of us seeking perfect love, it can only ever be a preliminary stage in the process. We can only move from perfect passion to perfect love when the illusions pass and we are able to use the energy and intensity generated by intense, overwhelming, erotic bonding to heighten self-discovery. Perfect passions usually end when we awaken from our enchantment and find only that we have been carried away from ourselves. It becomes perfect love when our passion gives us the courage to face reality, to embrace our true selves. Acknowledging this meaningful link between perfect passion and perfect love from the onset of a relationship can be the necessary inspiration that empowers us to choose love. When we love by intention and will, by showing care, respect, knowledge, and responsibility, our love satisfies. Individuals who want to believe that there is no fulfillment in love, that true love does not exist, clings to these assumptions because this despair is actually easier to face than the reality that love is a real fact of life, but is absent from their lives. In the last 2 years, I've talked a lot about love. My topic has been true love. It all started when I began to speak my heart's desire to say to friends, lecture audiences, folks sitting next to me on buses and planes and in restaurants that I was looking for true love. Cynically, almost all my listeners would let me know that I was looking for a myth. The few who still believed in true love offered their deep conviction that you can't look for it. That if it's meant for you, it will just happen. Not only do I believe wholeheartedly that true love exists, I embrace the idea that its occurrence is a mystery, that it happens without any effort any effort of human will. I, I embrace the idea that its occurrence is a mystery, that it happens without any effort of human will. And if that's the case, then it will happen whether we look for it or not. But we do not lose love by looking for it. We do not lose love by looking for it. Indeed, those among us who have been hurt, disappointed, disillusioned must open our hearts if we want love to enter. That act of opening is a way of seeking love. I've had a taste of true love. That experience intensifies my longing and my desire to search. A true love in my life first appeared to me in a dream. I've been invited to a conference on film and was reluctant to attend. I hate being bombarded by lots of new ideas at one time. It feels to me like overeating. Yet I had a dream in which I was told that if I went to this conference, I would meet a man in my dreams. Images in the dream were so vivid and real that I awakened with a sense of necessity. I called a girlfriend and told her my story. She agreed to go to the conference with me as my witness. A few weeks later, we arrived at the conference in the middle of a session in which speakers were on stage. I pointed to the man whose image had appeared in my dream. After the session, I met him and we talked. Meeting him was like seeing a long-lost relative or friend. We went to dinner. There was a feeling of mutual recognition between us from the start. It was as though we knew each other. As our conversation progressed, he told me he was in a committed relationship. I was puzzled and disturbed. I could not believe divine forces in the universe would lead me to this man of my dreams when there was no real possibility of fully realizing those dreams. Of course, those dreams were all about being in a romantic relationship. That was the beginning of a difficult lesson in true love. I learned that we may meet a true love and that our lives may be transformed by such an encounter even when it does not lead to sexual pleasure, committed bonding, or even sustained contact. The myth of true love, that fairy tale vision of two souls who meet, join, and live happily thereafter, is the stuff of childhood fantasy. Yet many of us, female and male, carry these fantasies into adulthood and are unable to cope with the reality of what it means either to have an intense life-altering connection that would not lead to an ongoing relationship or to be in a relationship. True love does not always lead to happily ever after, and even when it does, sustaining love still takes work. All relationships have ups and downs. Romantic fantasy often nurtures the belief that difficulties and down times are an indication of a lack of love rather than part of the process. In actuality, true love thrives on the difficulties. The foundation of such love is the assumption that we want to grow and expand to become more fully ourselves. There is no change that does not bring with it a feeling of challenge and loss. We experience true love, it may feel as though our lives are in danger. We may feel threatened. Whew. True love is different from the love that is rooted in basic care, goodwill, and just plain old everyday attraction. We are all continually attracted to folks. We like their style, the way they think, the way they look, etc. Whom we know that given a chance, we could love in a heartbeat. In his insightful book, Love and Awakening, Discovering the Sacred Path of Intimate Relationship, John Wellwood makes a useful distinction between this type of attraction, familiar to us all, which he calls a heart connection, and another type he calls a soul connection. Here's how he defines it. A soul connection is a resonance between two people who respond to the essential beauties of each other's individual natures behind their facades and who connect on a deeper level. This kind of mutual recognition provides the catalyst for a potent alchemy. It is a sacred alliance whose purpose is to help both partners discover and realize their deepest potentials, while a heart connection lets us appreciate those we love just as they are. A soul connection opens up a further dimension, seeing and loving them for who they could be and for who we could become under their influence. Making a heart connection with someone is usually not a difficult process. Throughout our lives, we meet lots of people with whom we feel that special click that could take us on the path of love. But this click is not the same as a soul connection. Often a deeper bond with another person, a soul connection, happens whether we will it to be or not. Indeed, sometimes we are drawn towards someone without knowing why, even when we do not desire contact. Several couples I talked with who have found true love enjoyed telling the story of how one of them did not find the other at all appealing at first meeting, even though they felt mysteriously joined to that individual. In all cases, where individuals felt that they had known true love, everyone testified that the bonding was not easy or simple. To many folks, this seems confusing precisely because our fantasy of true love is that it will be just that, simple and easy. Usually we imagine that true love will be intensely pleasurable and romantic, full of love and light. In truth, true love is all about work. The poet Rainier Maria Rilke wisely observed, like so much else, people have also misunderstood the place of love in life. They have made it into play and pleasure because they thought that play and pleasure was more blissful than work. But there's nothing happier than work and love, just because it is the extreme happiness. It can be nothing else but work. But there's nothing happier than work and love, just because it is the extreme happiness, can be nothing else but work. The essence of true love is mutual recognition. Two individuals seeing each other as they really are. We all know that the usual approach is to meet someone we like and put our best self forward, or even at times a false self, one we believe will be more appealing to the person we want to attract. When our real self appears in its entirety, when the good behavior becomes too much to maintain or the mask are taken away, disappointment comes. All too often, individuals feel after the fact, when feelings are hurt and hearts are broken, that it was a case of mistaken identity, that the loved one is a stranger. They saw what they wanted to see rather than what was really there. True love is a different story. When it happens, individuals usually feel in touch with each other's core identity. Embarking on such a relationship is frightening precisely because we feel there is no place to hide. We are known. All the ecstasy that we feel emerges as this love nurtures us and challenges us to grow and transform. Describing true love, Eric Butterworth writes, "True love is a peculiar idea. True love is a peculiar kind of insight through which we see the wholeness which the person is, at the same time totally accepting the level on which he now expresses himself. Without any delusion that the potential is a present reality, true love accepts the person who now is without qualifications, but with a sincere and unwavering commitment to help him to achieve his goals of self-unfoldment, which we may see better than he does." Most of the time, we think that love means just accepting the other person as they are. Who among us has not learned the hard way that we cannot change someone, mold them, and make them into the ideal beloved we might want them to be? Yet, when we commit to true love, we are committed to being changed, to being acted upon by the beloved, by the beloved in a way that enables us to be more fully self-actualized. This commitment to change is chosen. It happens by mutual agreement. Again and again in conversation, the most common vision of true love I have heard shared was one that declared it to be unconditional. True love is unconditional, but to truly flourish, it requires an ongoing commitment to constructive struggle and change. Blow it out. I saw something that said the only person who owes you unconditional love is yourself. And God offers unconditional love if you have a faith practice. But that one, true love is unconditional, but to truly flourish, it requires an ongoing commitment to constructive struggle and change. The heartbeat of true love is the willingness to reflect on one's actions and to process and communicate this reflection with the loved one. As well, what puts it, two beings who have a soul connection want to engage in a full, free-ranging dialogue and commune with each other as deeply as possible. Honesty and openness is always the foundation of insightful dialogue. Most of us have not been raised in homes where we have seen two deeply loving grown folks talking together. We do not see this on television or at the movies. And how can any of us communicate with men who have been told all their lives that they should not express what they feel? Men who want to love and do not know how must first come to voice, must learn to let their heart speak, and then to speak truth. Choosing to be fully honest, to reveal ourselves, is risky. The experience of true love gives us the courage to risk. As long as we are afraid to risk we cannot know love. Hence the truism, love is letting go of fear. Love and fear cannot coexist. Love is letting go of fear. Our hearts connect with lots of folks in a lifetime, but most of us will go to our graves with no experience of true love. This is in no way tragic, as most of us run the other way when true love comes near. Since true love sheds light on those aspects of ourselves we may wish to deny or hide, enabling us to see ourselves clearly and without shame. It is not surprising that so many individuals who say they want to know love turn away when such love beckons. No matter how often we turn our minds and hearts away, or how stubbornly we refuse to believe in its magic, true love exists. Everyone wants it, even those who claim to have given up hope. But not everyone is ready. True love appears only when our hearts are ready. A few years ago, I was sick and had one of those cancer scares where the doctor tells you if the tests are positive, you will not have long to live. Hearing his words, I lay there thinking I could not possibly die because I am not ready. I have not known true love. Right then, I committed myself to opening my heart. I was ready to receive such love, and it came. This relationship did not last forever, and that was difficult to face. All the romantic lore of our culture has told us when we find true love with a partner, it will continue. Yet this partnership lasts only if both parties remain committed to being committed to being loving. Not everyone can bear the weight of true love. Wounded hearts turn away from love because they do not want to do the work of healing necessary to sustain and nurture love. Many men especially often turn away from true love and choose relationships in which they can be emotionally withholding when they feel like it, but still receive love from someone else. Ultimately, they choose power over love. To know and keep true love, we have to be willing to surrender the will to power. When one knows a true love, the transformative force of that love lasts even when we no longer have the company of the person with whom we experience profound mutual care and growth. I do want to challenge this though. What is true love? And what is truly love to one person? Can it truly be love to? Does it truly have to be love to another? I think this is an interesting space to be in because romance and love are such an individualistic experience. And I'm learning that the more that I've related to some amazing women and just live life. What I consider a good time hasn't always been affirmed by the women that I've dated. What I consider enough isn't always considered enough. And what others consider enough. Sometimes the things that I want to do are considered too much. So I think it does come a point where the romance has to be with the self before it shows up in a pairing. It is interesting. This is 2000, right? So there's a lot of thoughts that change within time, right? This was 20 plus years ago that this was written. So it's interesting, even to think about the ways I grew up. I was born in 96, so I'm born in 96. This was written in 2000. I was only 4 years old when this book came out. Like, that's wild to me. When one knows a true love, the transformative force of that love lasts even when we no longer have the company of the person with whom we experience profound mutual care and growth. Thomas Merton writes, "We discover our true selves in love." Many of us are not ready to accept and embrace our true selves, particularly when living with integrity alienates us from our familiar worlds. Often when we undergo a process of self-recovery, for a time we may find ourselves more alone, writing about choosing solitude over company that does not nurture one's soul. Maya Angelou reminds us that it is never lonesome in Babylon. Fear of facing true love may actually lead some individuals to remain in situations of lack and unfulfillment. They are not alone. They are not at risk. To love fully and deeply puts us at risk. When we love, we are changed utterly. Merton asserts love affects more than our thinking and our behavior toward those we love. It transforms our entire life. Genuine love is a personal revolution. Love takes your ideas, your desires, and your actions and welds them together in one experience and one living reality, which is a new you. We often are in flight from the new you. Richard Bach's autobi I'm on the last page, that's why I was stuttering. Richard Bach's autobiographical love story, Illusions, describes both his flight from love and his return. To return to love, he had to be willing to sacrifice and surrender, to let go of the fantasy of being someone with no sustained emotional needs, to acknowledge his need to love and be loved. We sacrifice our old selves in order to be changed by love, and we surrender to the power of the new self. Love within the context of romantic bonding offers us the unique chance to be transformed in a welcoming, celebratory atmosphere. Without falling in love, we can recognize that moment of mysterious connection between our soul and that of another person as love's attempt to call us back to our true selves. Intensely connecting with another soul, we are made bold and courageous, using that fearless will to bond and connect as a catalyst for choosing and committing ourselves to love. We are able to love truly and deeply, to give and receive a love that lasts, a love that is stronger than death. Oh, chapter 11 is loss. That will be interesting. Interesante. That chapter felt short compared to the last one. I felt like I was reading forever yesterday. I was also stuttering a lot yesterday. That was chapter 10, Romance, all about love. I started with chapter 7, so this is nice that I'm like 4 days in. I would love for anybody to leave some questions in the comments, some thoughts. Also want to have somebody join me one day. I don't know what that'll look like, but also I would like book recommendations too, if you have those. And yeah, I brought my book out too. What do I have for my book that I want to share? Oh, hold it. I gotta put my bookmark in. Gotta have a bookmark, because I'll be reading. Do I really? Honestly, I don't have to have a bookmark, because I know I'm reading chapter 11 tomorrow. Ooh, I got recommended to read the autobiography of Sidney Poitier, so that should be interesting too. I might read that on here. Might read that on live. I Am Enough was one of my favorite poems I wrote. Page 20. Okay. Great days are made by the greatest. Only destruction is coming from hating. Life too complex for their general statements. I'm with the highest, success is contagious. Who do you serve? I don't care if you're famous. I'm liking me even when they ain't praising. Where do you stand? I don't care about your status. Man gave you titles, you honor them labels. You proud of the money you spent, what you save. Bragging about things that you have, still a slave. Gotta watch how I judge, cause I'm moving with love, and the truth is I might do the same. And my parents ain't teach me about faith and to honor his name. Grateful to say that through all of the pain I remain. Grateful for all of the love I maintain. Grateful and loved, I won't complain. Shout out to y'all in the free world. You know, I'm enough. I won't complain. I'm enough with the bands in my hand. I'm enough as I am. And the blessing is that I understand how to be more. Through the things we learn, we grow, right? If y'all read anything, share that in the comments. Like I say, man, stay blessed, stay grateful. One day made better, as many days made greater. I'm uplifting you to be in a world that cares. If I keep it to myself, I think that's unfair. The joys we're given are best when shared. These visionaries never die. Legends survive through the seeds we sow daily. We get better with time. I'm wishing you peace, prosperity, and many blessings. You know, I say built in private, blessed in public. I am a guy from a place. Charm City Bipper keeps the vandal. So y'all do what y'all do. Stay happy out here. Stay blessed. Stay positive. You know what I'm saying? Bit.